Welcome to episode 88 of the Swampflix podcast. My name is Brandon Leday.
And I'm Britnee Lombas.
And we are recording in Britnee's apartment in Pigeontown, New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And this is the movie review website Swampflix in podcast form.
Oof, yes.
Last episode I said it was episode 86, and I was wrong. So that's why we skipped the number. There is no episode 87 on the
That
books.
could be like the 13th floor.
Yeah,
That building's a void. Yeah. What was that? What was the number?
Oh, 87 is missing.
Okay, I was going to say we can 86.
We're going to 86, 87.
We're going to 86, 87, and now we're 88?
That's right.
Okay.
So what are you bringing to episode 88, Brittany? What movies have you been watching lately?
Other than the ones that we're going to be talking about later, I haven't been picking some great things. So I'm going to talk about two shitty things.
I've been watching a lot of mediocre movies.
Yeah.
It's just hot outside and I'm like dumb and I can't watch anything smart because my brain's just not working great.
Yes, which is why I'm binging on reality TV right now, which I'm really excited because there is a Real Housewife connection to one of the films we're talking about later on today, which I'm going to freak out about. But I'm going to start with the one that wasn't as bad, and I'm going to end with the one that like freaked me out the most. Okay. So there's a film called The Sun that just came out on Netflix. It's an Argentinian film that I think came out in theaters in Argentina in May, and it got released like about a week ago on Netflix. It is also known as El Hijo, which I think means sun in Spanish, right? Do you take Spanish?
Yeah, The Sun. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I didn't, so just wanted to throw that out there.
Hijo?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's Hijo,
that's
right? Okay, not Hijo.
Yes, that's right. Not
also.
Hijo. I took Spanish so long ago.
Okay,
but yeah, that's right.
Good, that's good. One of my biggest regrets is like not taking Spanish in high school. So it's about this guy named Lorenzo, and he's an artist and used to be like, I think like a college art professor. And he has a much younger wife that he's, I guess, more recently been married to. I don't even think they've been together for more than like 6 months or so. And her name is Sigrid. Well, Sigrid's kind of weird, but not to the point where you're like, whoa, something's up with her. You're like, oh, she's kind of quiet and keeps to herself. Not the most outgoing, but Lorenzo's kind of weird as well. And she gets pregnant for him. Now, she's also a biologist, and she begins to like diagnose herself with a bunch of shit. And doctors are like, we need to run tests before we can give you this kind of medicine. And she's like, I ran the test. I'm a biologist. Give me this medicine. And they're like, no. So she starts like medicating herself and
like a hypochondriac or
I don't know. Nothing is really made clear in this movie. Okay. So she starts like injecting herself, and she's, Lorenzo makes this crazy looking mural in the baby's room and she paints over it, and she's like, no bright colors for the baby. It's not good for him. Like these weird rules. And Lorenzo just doesn't have anything to do with her pregnancy. Like she doesn't let him in. And might I mention that he does have other children that he's not like a part of their lives. And of course it's one of those situations where it's like, oh, it's because the mother won't let me be. The mother won't let me be. One of those dads. So Lorenzo is a bit of an absent father, and she's in control of this pregnancy very much, and he's absent from it. And from the way we're seeing it more through his lens, where, oh, I'm trying and she's not allowing me. And then she hires someone to help her with the pregnancy and then childbirth and with raising the child, kind of like a nanny. And it's this old woman who is kind of mysterious as well. She goes into labor and Lorenzo can hear her, and then the room gets locked. Like they just keep him out completely. She gives birth to the baby, and Lorenzo like isn't even allowed to see the baby.
It's like Mother. And Jennifer Lawrence is like keeping the baby away from the
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. I didn't make that connection. So he keeps trying to like see his son, Henrik, and she's just not letting him. And there's just all kinds of weird stuff going on where she's very specific about what environment the baby's in, who can see him, who can touch him. He never leaves the house. Like it gets really weird. And he becomes like really suspicious and starts to kind of follow the nanny when she leaves the house with him to see where she's bringing his son and all this kind of creepy stuff. And then one day he gets into an altercation with Sigrid, and he kind of nudges her and she hits the ground and like gets a bloody face and calls the cops. And then she gets a restraining order put against him where he can't see his son. And he calls upon the help of his ex-girlfriend, who was a lawyer. That was one of his former students, who was married to someone else who I think was a former student as well, to help him see his son. And then his wife agrees, and she says, okay, I'll agree with an arrangement where he can come and see Henrik, and yada, yada, yada. Well, he goes to see him, and he's like, this isn't my son. So he's convinced that they've replaced Henrik with another baby. Weird. To keep the real Henrik from him. So I'm not going to give away the ending, but it's not great.
Okay.
No questions are ever answered.
Ugh.
Pretty much, there's like a weird lab that, you know, she's a biologist with a lab and everything. We kind of see, and you can assume that like weird shit's being done to this baby, which like, oh, you know, she was injecting herself while she was pregnant and very specific about what happens to it. So I don't know if she was experimenting with this kid. Or something like that. Like, you just don't know, and you never find out.
That's the worst. Make a choice.
It's so shitty. And then at the same time, it's one of those, like, I hate movies like that where it's like, oh, women are so evil and men are just trying to be good fathers, but no one ever believes the man when he's trying to be a good dad kind of thing. Yeah. So at the same time, I'm like, well, maybe we're meant to look at this as like, this is Lorenzo's perspective. What if he's just fucking crazy? And none of this was really happening, and he was just being crazy like that, which would mean why he doesn't see his other children. Because probably that mom's like, I'm not dealing with this crazy bullshit. You're not going to see your fucking kids.
Because you're a paranoid lunatic.
Exactly.
Okay, so you added me to this Psycho Biddy Facebook group.
My favorite thing in the world.
It's full of weirdos who post very like unsettling things all day.
It's good.
They've been hung up on Faye Dunaway's
her slapping
incident in a really gross way, but I find their take on it fascinating.
I'm also in a Mommy Dearest meme group called Mommy's Memes. Yeah. I can add you to that.
I think I'm good.
It's just like a lot of like clips of her with the window open saying, Christina, damn it.
Where I'm going with that, though, is that I'm starting to see Psycho Biddies everywhere because they, like, sort of over-diagnose movies. And, like, oh, this character's a Psycho Biddy when they're, like, 20 years old and can't qualify.
Right.
But I am getting a Psycho Biddy vibe from this, like, woman who's, like, losing control of how much medication she actually needs and, like, hiding this baby away. I mean, does that qualify, or is she even given enough to do for that?
She's not even given enough to do. Yeah, I mean, he'd be a Psycho Biddy if there was some male Psycho Biddy.
Psycho geezer? I mean,
he's a psycho geezer because he is old. So
I don't know. I could see that same story being interesting if she was, like, sort of losing her mind on camera. And,
or
like,
she had more of a role. She barely has a role in this movie. Like,
upsetting.
She's so silent, and I guess they do it to keep her, like, mysterious. But I feel like I'm giving it too much life. It's really not that good.
Okay. So avoid the Hijo.
Unless you want to, like, I don't know, put something on while you're eating a big bowl of spaghetti or something, whatever. Throw that thing on.
That's a lot of Netflix movies in general.
Yeah. Just kind of background noise,
Fold your laundry to it.
Yes, this is a good fold your laundry to film. Well, the other movie I watched, I think you would really like it. And it's one of those films where I'm like, did I like it or did I fucking hate it because it was so weird and disgusting?
Oh, that's the best.
So it's called The Quiet.
I've never heard of it.
It's a film from 2005. And it's about a girl. Her name's Dot, and she's deaf. And she's like a teenager. And her mom died like when she was younger. And then her dad dies while she's probably like 16 or 17 years old. And she has no family left. So she goes to move in with the Deer family. And the mother of this family is Edie Falco. And the father is Martin Donovan. I feel like he plays a lot of dad roles in general.
Character actor Martin Donovan.
Yes. Okay. Well, they're her godparents. And they also have a daughter. And the daughter is played by Alicia Cuthbert. She was like in some of those I can't think of it, but like the Girl Next Door type movies from the early 2000s.
Like comedies?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
If you'd see her, you'd recognize her. Well, she's a total asshole, and she terrorizes Dot. Like, Dot's at school, she's deaf, and like all her family's dead. So this chick is like kind of more of a popular girl, and she'll make fun of Dot, and her friends kind of pick at her and like, oh, what a freak, she's deaf. Just like mean. And there's something weird going on at the home of this Deer family. So Edie Falco's character, she's like a mother, but she's addicted to pain pills. So she's constantly like popping pills and passing out. And the father is the weirdest fucker because he has a secret affair going on with his daughter.
Ugh.
Yeah.
No.
To where they'll be like at the dinner table and he'll be like, you can't go to the library. And then while the mom's not looking, she'll like rub his leg with her feet. I was like, come on, can I go, Dad? Like weird. And he like buys her gifts and stuff like that. Like 16, 17.
Eek, no.
I know. So he like buys her like nice purses and stuff like that. And like when the mom passes out from her pill binge, like he goes into her room and they like have sex.
On camera?
Ish. Not like intensely on camera, but they're underneath like her girly silk sheets.
So like a Hollywood love-making scene between a father and a daughter.
It's so weird. And so Dot is like deaf, but she knows what's going on. And the thing is like everyone kind of uses Dot to get everything off their chest, like all their secrets, because they're like, oh, you're deaf. So you can't even hear what I'm saying. But it makes me feel better by telling you. So she tells Dot, like, you know, I've been effing my dad. And here's this weird thing I do with his nipples.
No.
And I'm going to kill him tonight. Because I fucking hate him. And I fucking hate that I love him. Like, weird stuff.
Right. I mean, maybe he deserves it.
Possibly, right? So that's kind of like the premise of the film is she gonna kill her dad? And is Dot really deaf? Because there's some stuff that starts to happen where you're like, is she deaf or not? And it's really hard to figure out, like, who's a good person in this movie and who isn't. But I've never seen, like, a more fucked up, like, incest type movie than this one. And I wasn't expecting it, period. Because I saw Edie Falco. She's, like, a credible actress. Sure, I'll watch this. Whoa.
What's the tone of the film? Is it, like, trying to terrorize you?
It's like a thriller.
Okay.
Like a thriller. And it's like the early 2000s, like, teen thriller vibe. Like, you kind of get those notes of I Know What You Did Last Summer kind of going in the air. But then it's, like, kind of trashy Lifetime as well.
I could get into this.
Right.
I like to feel uncomfortable with that stuff.
It
sounds very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right. Like, after she, like, confessed what she was doing with her father, I was like, I don't want to finish watching it, but then I was like, I want to see if he dies.
Right.
So then I finished watching it, and whoo, The Quiet. It's a lot of garbage, but if you're into some uncomfortable trash, watch it.
I actually might do that because that's the mode I've been into.
It's on Tubi TV.
Exactly.
Yeah, so watch it.
I've been watching a lot of movies where you can watch it like free on the Roku channel with commercials.
Let me tell you something. The Tubi TV app has the weirdest fucking movies on it, period. Bizarre shit. Like this movie. So that's the two, like, trashy things I've been watching. What about you, Brandon? Have you been watching anything better than The Sun or The Quiet?
Also a lot of trash. I have a lot to pick from because I've been watching a lot of trash.
Okay.
So I'll try to keep it specific to today's topic. We're talking about crocodiles and alligators in horror films and other films. one of these movies is not like the other, but more about that later. But I guess I should talk about some like aquatic horror kind of stuff I've been watching. I rewatched a movie I saw as a kid, but I haven't seen in a long time. Every year for my birthday, I watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger film because he brings me joy. And this year, I rewatched Eraser from 1996. Ooh, have you ever seen that?
No.
The only time I've heard this movie come up recently was when Chi-Chi DeVayne on RuPaul's Drag Race, who's a Louisiana drag queen, North or West Louisiana?
Shreveport.
Had an episode where Vanessa Williams was on the panel. And Chi-Chi stops the show and is like, I just want you to know that you were wonderful in Eraser. Which is such an out there
Vanessa Williams is in it?
Yes.
You know I love her.
You should watch this.
Okay, like I love her. Wilhelmina Slater, her character in Ugly Betty was one of my favorite characters of all time.
Oh, wow.
And her one-hit wonder, Save the Best for Last, would be, if I was ever a drag queen, that would be my slow jam of choice. Go on.
So there's a lot of things to praise Vanessa Williams about. This seems like a weird choice, like an esoteric choice. But it eventually makes sense. So Vanessa Williams stars as this computer programmer type person for this government project.
She is everything.
To design a future gun. Like they're making this gun that can see through walls and like sort of like this sickly green, like the Matrix layout. It reminded me a lot of The Net. Because a lot of it is Vanessa Williams like running away from... She's basically like witness protection with this like forbidden disc that has the plans for the gun on it.
Cool.
A lot like Sandra Bullock in The Net. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is protecting her. And, you know, it's fun in a lot of Arnie ways. Like, There's a scene where he jumps out of an airplane without a parachute and like survives improbably, and that's like really fun. But I think the reason Chi-Chi DeVayne brought this movie up is because there's a scene in the city zoo in Brooklyn where, to save Vanessa Williams' life, Arnie shoots open the crocodile exhibit at the zoo, and these CG crocodiles come out and eat all of the bad guys. And I remembered that as a kid. Like, all I remembered was the gun, because it's kind of a like really specific gun design, and also that there were crocodiles in this film, which I just assumed were gators at the time. Because, I mean, in Louisiana, we only have gators.
It's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the snout's narrower, and I'm like, but still fucking big.
Yeah.
Regardless. Anyways.
And in America, crocodiles don't get that big. Gators are bigger here. Crocodiles are like huge in Australia and stuff. We can talk about the difference between these two animals later. Later. But in this case, he releases all these crocodiles, and they like chomp on all these bad guys. And the CGI is it's super dated, but it's still really gruesome and extensive. Like, I thought I was like sort of overplaying it in memory, but it really is like a lot of gator action, croc action. So I'm convinced that is the reason that Chi-Chi DeVayne like fixated on this film, because she's also from Louisiana, and it just makes sense.
And probably saw that like as a young kid too.
Also, there's a scene where, to keep one of his other clients in witness protection, he installs this like Italian stereotype character as a bartender in a drag bar in New York. So there's a little bit of like drag queen action in there too.
Ooh.
So it's like a Chi-Chi DeVayne Schwarzenegger film.
Racer.
Yeah.
Ooh, I need to see this.
It's good, cheesy Schwarzenegger fun.
Okay, good.
It's not like an exceptional Arnold movie, but it's worth it for the gators at least. Also, another aquatic horror film. This has no gators nor crocodiles in it. I watched this film called Dagon from 2001. It's directed by Stuart Gordon and produced by Brian Usna. They did like Reanimator and From Beyond, and
Brian Usna Society?
Yeah, Usna did Society. Like,
wonderful.
A lot of like 80s and 90s H.P. Lovecraft inspired stuff.
Okay.
And this is a H.P. Lovecraft adaptation of a longer novella called Shadow over Innsmouth. And it's basically about this like couple who are sort of like yachting on the Spanish coast, and their boat crashes, and they go into town, and everyone there is super creepy. It's like this old Spanish town where everything's rotting.
I love that in movies when it's the whole fucking town that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, that's so scary.
And yeah, this ends up being sort of like the aquatic version of Wicker Man, where like they're like way in over their heads, and this whole town is in on their doom. And it turns out that they're like fish people. They made a deal with this god that lives under the water. They worship the god, and they give it all this stuff, and in return the god gives them gold. And as like sort of a penance, they start turning into these fishy creatures. Like, they start growing tentacles and things. So they're like dragging their bodies along the ground and stuff because they can't walk anymore. Whoa. And they get these like nasty gills, and they're like all sickly gray looking. It's a really cheap, cheesy early 2000s horror film. It's got even worse CGI than that 90s alligator sequence. But it's sufficiently nasty. Like, almost because it's so cheap and you forget that you're watching something R-rated, every now and then like a character will get their like face ripped off, and it's like practical effects gore. Like, you watch the skin fall off the skull, and there's just like blood everywhere, and you're like, oh god. Like, you're sort of like taken aback by how nasty it gets. So yeah, I appreciated it for sort of going there.
Nice.
On top of being like a cheesy CGI laden like cheap 2000s film.
The story sounds great.
It's cool, yeah. And it removes a lot of the racism from the early H.P. Lovecraft stories, so that's good.
Great.
Just takes it right out for fun.
Moving forward.
Replaces a little bit with sexual assault because they're offering women to this god.
Okay.
I don't love that, but the movie's fun in the way that like Reanimator and From Beyond are fun.
Yeah.
So if you want more Stuart Gordon films and you haven't seen that one yet, it's a good one. And I'm actually going to be guesting on the We Love to Watch podcast.
Oh, cool.
About that movie and another Stuart Gordon flick this month. They're doing a whole Summer of Lovecraft theme where they're talking about H.P. Lovecraft for like 2 months solid.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'll be in one of the last episodes.
Oh, very cool.
So listen to We Love to Watch. They're a lot like this show, but instead of You know how we have like a themed episode? They sort of stretch that out over a month. So they like dedicate one episode to one movie and they talk about a theme so like over a longer period of time.
That's kind of cool.
But their topics are very similar. Like I think they could do a Killer Gators and a Killer Croc month, kind of like we're doing this episode, and they'd have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, there's so much out there.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we've already covered our favorite gator movies before, which is why we're sort of splitting this episode up between gators and crocs. The word that unites them is crocodilia, so we're doing a cinema crocodilia episode.
Bon appetit.
Yes. I would say my favorite gator movie is Alligator People from the 50s, which is like a Fly ripoff where an experiment goes awry and someone turns into an alligator person.
Right.
And your favorite we did for Movie of the Month before.
Fucking alligators.
It's called Alligator, simply, from 1980.
Ramon!
Yeah.
Through the streets of Chicago.
Which I think we should mention that around the time Crawl came out, like the exact weekend Crawl came out, there was a small alligator that appeared in Chicago, which makes the movie Alligator seem less ridiculous now.
A little bit, because someone probably went get a little souvenir, flush it down the toilet. It just made its way out the sewer, so it didn't eat all the radioactive garbage to make it giant.
Oh yeah, and there were also news stories about how you shouldn't flush your meth down the toilet because it like affects gators.
Meth gators.
Meth gators. And also the weekend
Oh my God.
Crawl came out, Hurricane Barry hit the Louisiana coast.
Yes, I thought that was crazy.
All like very eerily timed.
Mm-hmm, indeed.
So we're going to talk about a killer alligator movie that's in theaters right now. It's called Crawl. And then we're going to talk about some more gators and crocodiles after that. Mm-hmm. And all that's coming up to you right now.
Imagine waking up to find this giant monster in your kitchen. That's what happened to a homeowner in Clearwater, Florida.
I have a gigantic alligator who's sitting in my kitchen, a huge one.
I'm sorry, is it in your house?
Yes, it's huge. I don't know how it got here, but it's here.
And now it's time for our movie of the minute. This is where we bounce back and forth recommending films to each other. And I made Britnee go out to the movie theater to go see the movie Crawl, which we previously mentioned.
Yeah.
Released during Hurricane Barry.
Fucking crazy.
Released during Chance the Snapper's visit to Chicago. That was his official
name.
Yeah. Colloquially known as Chance the Snapper. Oh. And also released here with this like street marketing campaign where I saw warning posters all around town in these like sort of unconventional places.
What?
Like snowball stands and like restaurants around the city had these Crawl posters on the wall that made it look like, warning, there's a gator in the area, but it was actually a movie advertisement.
Shut up.
I've never seen that before.
What? Wait, what restaurants and stuff?
That sushi place that's kind of out by here, like on Airline, that's right by the Bounce House rental place.
Asuka?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, I love that place.
They had one.
Oh, they sponsor the baby night at the movie theater.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. That's really cute. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And they also had one across from the movie theater that
it's
does
probably
the baby
still
night.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I want to go see it.
Go check it out. So I thought that was interesting. And, of course, I was going to be in the theater for this no matter what. I did have to wait a week because of the hurricane. We all stayed indoors for... It ended up being no reason, thank God. But
I know.
Right. But, okay, this is a hurricane movie, though. So it couldn't have been more appropriate. Basically, this Category 5 hurricane hits the Florida coastline. And this girl is at her swim practice for the Florida Gators, the Florida State University Gators swim team. She gets out of practice and realizes her dad hasn't checked in for the storm. They don't know what he's doing. So she ends up going down to his house, way down in the swamp.
Where she's not even allowed to go because they're like, you need to turn around. There's like cars that are flipped over and shit.
Yeah, she breaks the barricade or the contraflow.
She's a little badass.
Yeah.
With a Jeep.
She reasons with the cops too because it's like a little small community and she's like, hey, I know these roads. I'm just going to go check in on my dad.
Right.
The dad is unconscious in his crawl space under his house and the floodwaters are rising. The levee's threatening to break. She finds him and she's about to pull him out, and lo and behold, a gigantic fucking alligator is under there.
Yeah.
The alligator, like, sort of nips at her leg and, affects her
just
ability to swim.
Just kind of nips at it a little bit.
It, like, pulls her around.
Pulls her around.
Right. And then later, she gets more injuries to her leg as well. Right. And the two of them are just sort of bleeding and helpless.
In the fucking dirt and dirty water.
They have maybe like a 2-foot clearing from the floor to the...
I kept thinking of the infection because there's like dead like possums and shit under there, and I'm like, ugh, with those open wounds.
the floodwaters rise until there's like no room left in the crawl space. They have to fight their way into the top of the house. And even that doesn't matter because as they're doing that, more and more gators gather around until there's just like an improbable number of gators, first off. And second off, I don't know how you feel about this. Maybe we should start here. I'm not that afraid of gators in general when I see them out. Usually they're so still.
The thing is, a gator's not going to really come at you. Like, they're more scared of us than we think.
Right.
And the only time that I'd be concerned, and I've had my run-in with an alligator while I was swimming in a lake off my dad's trawl boat like
you have to tell me what happened.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm afraid of being in the water with them because they fucking swim fast, and my big ass does not swim as fast as an alligator. So my dad, his boat doesn't have like a ladder. So we parked in a lake around like Lake Salvador, and I wanted to go swimming. So I just jumped off his boat in the middle of this like huge open water lake, and I'm swimming around. And then he comes out of his boat with like a pistol. And I was like, what the fuck? Is my dad going crazy? And he's like, keep swimming. There's an alligator over there, but I'm going to get it before it gets to you.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? So then I'm like freaking out.
This is last summer?
Yeah, it was like last 4th of July.
Wow.
And then I could see the alligator coming towards me. Like, it wasn't coming that fast. It was just kind of swimming. I could see its little head. So there's no ladder for me to climb up. So I have to climb up on his like butterfly nets, and I like, jumped in the boat, and I'm like all like cut by the wires and stuff, like bleeding on the deck. It was a wild time.
That is crazy.
Right.
My experience with them usually is they don't move though.
Actually, and after Hurricane Barry, my dad got it was like a 4-foot alligator in our front yard. He caught him and went and bring him back in the water.
Right.
Like, because he was just freaking out. He was like, I don't know where to go. The hurricane sent me here.
Yeah.
But he didn't like run at my dad or anything.
And that is a legitimate thing that happens. Like when it floods, they get displaced and they start showing up in people's kitchens or people's front yards.
Right, and they're confused as shit.
Yeah, they don't want to be there.
And the thing about alligators is they can only go straight. So there is one that chases you. You have to run zigzag like because then it slows them down.
Right.
Because they can't turn.
And they're a little slower out of the water too. They can swim really fast.
Right.
From what I understand, crocodiles are much more aggressive in general.
Yeah.
And swim even faster and get even bigger, but more in like other places like salt water.
Australia.
Yeah, exactly, like Australia, which we'll definitely get to later.
Absolutely.
But for a Florida movie, these alligators are unusually aggressive, I would say, and monstrous. And it seems so improbable that there's just so many of them in this one concentrated spot. Eventually, the levee does break in the film, and the flood gets, like, roof high. And it just seems like the water is just, like, crawling with these alligators that are all, like, only interested in killing
and just
things.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they made them scary. Like, I'm not always scared. I love alligators. I think they're very adorable.
They look like fat dogs, kind of. They're just like chunky little fuckers.
Like dinosaur dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have like little crooked smiles.
Yeah.
I think they're cutesy.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of this movie in general?
Okay. I don't want to say that it's on par with Jaws.
I like it better than Jaws.
I was so amped when I saw it. I like left the theater screaming like, this is the Jaws of our generation.
That's amazing.
And I feel like that. I loved it so fucking much. It was so realistic, and it didn't delve into the cheese like it could have.
Yeah, it's not like
it could have gone a
movie.
Totally different way real easily, but it felt so like genuine, and I was interested in everything at every fucking second. It was just, and I love those kind of films where it's like you think they get out scot-free and then something else happens. And that's what happens in this film. Like, they get out the crawl space and you're like, oh, thank God. When the fucking levees break and then they get a boat and you're like, oh, thank God.
Got out.
And the fucking boat goes through a house and then the water's rising and you're like, get on the roof. Like, what's going to happen if you get on the roof? Like, what happened? Are the alligators going to come on the roof?
I do have an alternate ending to this movie I would have preferred.
Okay.
I think that they get on the roof and then they survive and they find out that the world's been taken over by alligators. Like, oh my God. The helicopter coming in to save them is like full of alligators and like they get to a different city and you know what I'm saying? Like, Because it seemed like there's this exponential escalation where it just gets worse and worse, and the gators get more aggressive and more numerous.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think I've ever seen an area, and I'm not that familiar with Florida, but that was a ton of alligators for such a small space. And like, if you go out into a swamp, you're never going to see like 10 alligators hanging out together.
Right.
And mind you, this is like a small town that's been like flooded over, and there's like fucking tons of, it's crazy. I
should also say, I do appreciate this more than Jaws. I don't think I love Jaws that much. We talked about that a couple 4th of Julys ago, and it's a fun movie.
I like Jaws.
I like it too, yeah.
But I just like loved this so much, where I just kind of, I mean, and I think like we get the seriousness of the hurricane situation, like that's scary in itself when you're stuck in a house for a hurricane that's like literally flooding, much less like the biggest alligators you've ever seen in your whole fucking life coming after you.
I do think this like is the best hurricane movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
They reference some stuff. There's like looters, which thankfully are just like shithole teens that are having fun and not like desperate people who actually need food. Like, I don't know if I would have wanted to see.
It's a bunch of turds, and boy, do they get theirs.
Oh yeah, no one is safe in this movie. Everyone who shows
even
up
if you're in a boat, which scares the shit out of me.
And they reference hurricane parties, which feels like sort of a localized idiom. They also mention on the radio that you shouldn't shoot guns into hurricanes.
And people do that.
People do that. That's a real thing. Which I felt like there's like some kind of local like flavor to that.
Like they did their research in regards to like what hurricanes are like and prepping and everything and what locals do. So I thought that was kind of cool. Hurricane culture.
Even those like those wind up flashlights she had and those like wind up radios.
Have
like
those little
that is a prepared kit staple. Okay, so the hurricane stuff works for you.
Absolutely.
I have 2 other things I want to ask you about.
Yes.
Because these are things that matter. You can answer them in any order you want.
Okay.
The relationship between the father and the daughter. Mm-hmm. And also the look of the alligators, like their design and like how they were pulled off special effects wise.
Alligators, phenomenal. I thought they looked as realistic as they could.
It's crazy good CGI.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. Good deal.
Yeah.
Loved that. Blown away. Relationship between the father and daughter. Totally got at my heartstrings. Like, it felt very genuine to me.
He's like training her as a kid
apex predator?
Become the apex predator in the pool, which is funny. That phrase comes up a lot in alligator and crocodile discussions.
Because she has to be that.
Right.
To save them.
And her swimming obviously comes into play later when she's like swimming around in floodwaters too. Even though her leg's been chomped on a little bit.
I liked that because I just liked the father-daughter relationship because obviously they had issues because the father's been divorced from the mother and he's not as close with the daughter as they once were and all this kind of stuff. But you know who holds that family together?
Who's that? The dog?
The star of the show, Sugar.
Okay.
I was blown away by Sugar. I've never seen a dog in a film that was this vital to a relationship of a family, where I think that like her bringing Sugar to go find her dad, and then whenever everything's getting bad, like he's like, oh, Sugar. Like, you know, they love that dog so much, and she's there for both of them. So I think she has a lot to do with bringing them together and getting them closer through this alligator infested water hurricane drama.
I did have sort of my heart in my throat watching Sugar swim through the floodwater. Like, no, not Sugar.
Went to a different way than I thought it would, and I'm so thrilled.
I don't know if I want to give that away, but I will say what happens in the film is there's a lot of setup for stuff like that. Like Sugar's swimming in the floodwater and you expect it to go one way. Or like a cop will be looking down into the crawl space and like calls out to his partner. Yeah. And it's always good misdirect. Like the camera and the positioning makes you expect something to come from one direction, and then every single time it surprises you.
Right.
Like the gator attacks come from these like unexpected angles. The gators look unexpectedly real.
Yes.
And they get bigger and there's more of them. Like it's a shocking
They
twist.
knew how to keep us like engaged and keep us guessing, where at first I'm like, I watched so many movies, like I know exactly what's gonna happen. Fuck no, I didn't. I love that so much about this movie. But yeah, Sugar. Great dog, and I love this so much because I always have arguments with people where I'm like, if there's ever a situation with a hurricane, I would never leave my dog at home.
No.
And a lot of people are like, well, sometimes it gets really bad and you can't really... Whatever. They were in alligator-infested waters, and they were fucking carrying Sugar with them, waist deep, to get to that boat.
Yeah.
And I would have done the same thing for my dog. And I love that so much.
It would be harder with a cat, I think. Even with a cat carrier.
I would shove him in like a backpack.
It would be hard, but you could do it.
Yeah.
A dog, you kind of have to try. I mean,
yeah, I know. I just thought it was sweet
Yeah.
how like they didn't leave her behind. They were like, we're going to get to this random boat through all these alligators and we're bringing Sugar with us.
Effectively, they're a 3-person family as far as
exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. But I liked how they didn't have like the sappy like father-daughter relationship. It was kind of like it had its own it wasn't perfect, but then it was real.
They had issues to work through.
Exactly. And
while
I like that.
fighting off these giant dino beasts.
Loved it. How did you like that, Brandon?
I didn't care that much about it.
Okay.
To be honest. I thought it was a good setup, especially with, working in the swim team stuff, like how him making her more competitive.
That kind of sucked because I hate those parents.
Yeah, but at least it's a theme. Like
Right.
it's something they're critical of him about. And like how she is kind of damaged because her self-worth is so focused on how well she does in the swim team, and she's not that good. Like she's really good.
She's really good,
she's
but
not the best.
Right. And then she is so hard on herself where it's like, wow, you just accomplished something amazing that probably not a lot of people could. And it's like, well, it wasn't the best, so it sucks. It was weird. So I put that kind of parenting on par with like the pageant mom shit.
Oh, it's the same thing.
It's the same shit.
Yeah.
Just with sports, and it sucks. And it's really hard to watch.
It's hard on the kids, and I do think the movie deals with like the effect of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not what I was focused on. I mean, I was more like just really impressed by the setups for each gator gag. Like
so good.
Every scene where you think you know how and where the gators are going to show up and what they're going to look like, it really upends your expectations.
Well, there's this like this drain pipe they have.
Oh, God.
That part was cool. So there's a drain pipe they have to like alleviate the water whenever it floods, because this area floods a lot. And it's kind of the only way out because this giant gator is just like perched up against like the only exit from the crawl space. So she's like, I'm gonna go through the pipe where the gators were coming from. And so she goes through this fucking pipe where she has to like swim through it and hold her breath. And then there's alligators swimming underwater in front of it. And I was just like screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. And then she finally gets to like up the pipe where there's this like little plot of land or whatever. And there's like broken eggs with like alligator yolk all over her fingers, and she's like, oh no, she's in the nest.
Which I expected like a bunch of little gators to come nibbling at her or something.
Right. That would have been cute.
Right. But yeah, overall, like I really thought this was even better than it had any
It
chance
was
to
so
be.
good.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna be like one of my favorite movies of 2019.
I'm into that. That's cool.
As far as like creature features go, like
Yeah.
this was awesome.
Well, if you think about it, recently we had a few summers in a row where there were like shark attack movies. Mm-hmm. There's one where like Blake Lively's on a rock for 2 hours and fights off a shark, The Shallows. And then there's also 47 Meters Down.
They're coming out with another one, right?
God, this is, whatever.
Yeah.
They are. I didn't love that movie.
Yeah, it's okay.
But this is the best in that genre that we've seen recently, easily. It really satisfies in a way those shark movies didn't for me. Even though I liked The Shallow, it was fine. I just really loved this way more.
This is like more interactive with the gators. Like it's not like you just see it every now and then. Like you see them all the time.
And the jump scares really worked with like a crowd.
God.
Like everyone was sort of like jumping and shouting, and yeah, it was cool.
There's a part, and I'm not gonna say who, but where like someone gets their arm ripped off.
Nice.
And I started fucking screaming, and I was pushed up against my like seat in the theater, and I was at that like dining moving theater, and this guy next to me was eating burgers and fries and almost threw them off his fucking table. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Did you see that?
yes. It was just, oh God, it was driving me crazy in the best way possible. I loved it.
And that's the best kind of like summertime.
And crocodiles. If this was a croc, I'd be just a bleeding mess right now, and you'd probably have your leg ripped off. Crocodiles are so aggressive, they just hit with such power and speed and ferocity that you can't get out of the way quick enough. You can see this gator, you're actually able to pat on him and love on him. He has a couple of strikes.
I don't want to love on him, but yeah, I know what you mean.
So like I said earlier, we've kind of already talked about our favorite gator movies before. So we kind of ventured into crocodile movies to pair with Crawl, just to open it up a little bit. I picked a movie I had never seen before either, but I was just interested in it. It's called Eaten Alive. It's also known by like Death Trap and like Starlight Horror and like Horror Hotel. It's got a bunch of names.
Like all shitty movies do.
Right. Especially movies from the 70s, because they all like were distributed regionally on the drive-in movie circuit. This is from 1976. It's directed by Tobe Hooper, and it's his follow-up after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's kind of got the parts of Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I don't love. It's just nonstop shrill mayhem for like 90 minutes. It just doesn't let up. I would call it an aggravating movie, which makes it sound like I really didn't like it.
You couldn't understand what anyone was saying because they were just yelling the whole time.
Everyone is on 11 at all times. Most significantly, I would say a child who whimpers for like the entire movie because her dog is eaten. So I get it.
Can I talk about that child real quick?
Sure.
So the child is Kyle Richards.
Who is that?
Who is one of my favorite Real Housewives. She is a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills. So the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills do include celebrities. So Kyle Richards, Denise Richards is in that group as well.
Whoa.
She's badass.
I love Denise.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you something she did later in the show. It's great. And Lisa Rinna. And they're all great. Well, Kyle Richards, her sister is Kim Richards, who was the little girl in Escape to Witch Mountain.
Okay.
And their older sister is Kathy Hilton, who is Paris Hilton's mother.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this wealthiest circle of people some have to do with this like really grimy grindhouse horror film.
And the whole time, like, because her mother, I think, was an actress, Kyle's mother. So, like, the whole time, I'm just like, what did she say? Like, okay, sweetie, just go scream for a good 2 hours while you crawl under a house.
Just whimpering. It's not even the screaming. It's like the She's like really uncomfortable.
Well, yeah,
and I get it.
There's a weird man with a scythe,
and a gator eats her dog.
Is eating her dog, Snoopy.
Okay, so here's the premise of this film. There's a Cajun man in the Texas swamps, and this is like podunk swamp people thing in a way that when we talked about like Belizaire the Cajun and stuff, it was like, oh, this is when Cajun people started making films about themselves. This feels like earlier than that, when like Hollywood people are like, people from the swamp are scary, and this is what they're like. Am I off base by saying
no,
this?
No, you're right.
Okay.
I never felt more dirty than when I watched this movie.
It's so gross.
It's so disgusting. Like, there's this nasty fucking motel with this fucking filthy dude that looks like a perv that hasn't washed himself in weeks, and there's a whorehouse around the corner.
That's like the two locations besides like a dive
with a
bar.
bunch of filthy dudes going to it, and then that nasty, dirty dive bar. It was just a dirty ass town.
And that's kind of like Tobe Hooper's thing with Texas Chainsaw too, right? Like,
right.
Everyone's a maniac and everything is gross.
Nothing is clean.
Right.
I could smell it. Like, you know when you go to, like, when you're traveling and you stop at a gas station in Mississippi, it's kind of rinky-dink, and you go in the bathroom and it smells like that weird soap and cigarette juice and filth.
Oh, yeah.
I smelled that the whole time.
And that's probably generous. Like, it probably smelled worse than that. The guy also looks like Stephen King a little bit, I think.
I was going to say, Stephen King, whenever he was in The Creep Show.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
playing like a redneck character.
And he talks like him, too.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, this is a creepy motel owner, like the Starlight Inn, or the Starlight Motel, whatever, in the swamp, near the whorehouse, and he is unwell.
To say the least.
Yeah. It's not like Norman Bates where like he's hiding it and like playing this like handsome guy and then like freaks out behind the scenes.
It's just weird.
He's just not right. A group of people sort of trickle into his motel over the course of the movie.
Right.
It's not really worth explaining each thing that happens.
No,
but
not at all.
A runaway prostitute.
One of Miss Hattie's girls.
Right. From down the way. Also, a group of people who claim to be her family and are looking for that very sex worker. Also, Robert Englund, pre-Freddy Krueger, playing like a...
Buck who wants to fuck.
Yeah.
As he says in the beginning.
Buck who is really interested in finding someone who'll do anal with him. And that is his sole search.
That's all he wants.
Yeah. Also... I'm missing somebody. Oh, yeah, and then a family that comes
through. Okay.
And these are like uptight city people that find themselves in the swamp.
Let's talk about the family for a quick second, because I didn't understand it. Like, the dad would, like, shake violently and then, like, run around and scream. And I'm like, are they on drugs?
The whole movie feels like that. Like, no one is acting human. Everyone is, like, turned up as if they've all been drugged. Like,
it's weird. Like,
yeah.
the mom has a wig on, like a short black wig, and she
takes
takes
it
it off, and she has long blonde hair. And then the dad goes up to her and clenches his fist and like pretends to punch her, but doesn't, while he's like making this crazy face and sweating. And then he sits in his chair and does other weird shit with his hands.
Well, they're a married couple who hate each other. That is all we really know about them.
Okay, well, they
like fucking hate each
very
other's
unhealthy.
guts.
Okay.
They stop at the motel because the dad needs to pee. And what happens is immediately this crocodile eats the little girl's dog. They have like a
Right.
daughter with a dog, and the crocodile eats the dog, and the girl watches it happen.
After they find a dead monkey.
Oh yeah, and there's another. God damn,
It's such a weird,
such a gross movie.
movie.
So the crocodile is the pet of the motel owner. He specifically got a crocodile because it's meaner than alligators and swims faster and kills better.
Isn't he call him like something Nile? Or he's from the Nile?
Something like that.
I couldn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's from Africa.
So
Crocodile.
this sexually deviant, creepy Stephen King looking motherfucker
Oh.
just kills people with a hoe, like a backhoe and a scythe, and then
Yeah.
feeds them to his pet crocodile, which is in the movie basically a big puppet. It's like a big puppet
It's
they
just
put
a
in the
head.
water.
Yeah.
You see a little bit of the body, but yeah, it's like a very immobile puppet. But I guess what I'm saying is, it's like a headache of a movie. Everyone is annoying.
Right.
Everything is loud and shrill and gross, but I kind of appreciated how gross it is. Like, it's impressively nasty.
It's fun.
Did you enjoy watching
I
it?
did.
Okay.
I liked it. I didn't hate it. It was terrible, but it was a good time. Just the motel owner in general, like, I could not figure that guy out, where whenever the Miss Hattie's girl, the initial girl, like,
Miss
went
Hattie
there,
is the brothel
Yes.
owner, the madam.
and when he found out, like, oh, you're one of those girls, like, he hugs her aggressively and then, like, lifts her up and then he just does weird stuff where you're like, what are you trying to do? Like, I couldn't figure out, like, are you trying to have sex with her? Are you trying to murder her? Like, what's your goal?
No one's motivations make any sense. People
Yeah.
just act strangely and then get eaten by a crocodile.
And then they have, like, this scene where it's at, like, a local bar, and there's this, like, tall, like, goober-looking guy with a cowboy hat that they really focus on, but then he never comes back. It was just, like, there's, like, a lot of, like, weird, pointless scenes where I'm like, what was the purpose of focusing on that guy for 10 minutes?
Early Tobe Hooper movies like Texas Chainsaw and The Funhouse, which you've done before.
Love that movie.
They kind of feel like this. Like, everyone's acting very oddly and things are
Right.
just gross and hardly anyone's likable.
Nothing
and
is disinfected.
No,
Not at all.
Now, I will say what all those movies have in common too is like a really cool production design. This isn't filmed in the swamp; it's filmed on this soundstage in California, and they built this fake-looking little swamp village, and it's so fake and so artificial that it's like surreal. It feels like a dream. And
Right.
there's all this like swamp fog that they light with these like neon lights and stuff.
It's awesome.
It looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I was impressed by it, even though I was very aggravated by it. The movie purposefully makes you feel like on edge in a way that I don't think is pleasant, but that was kind of the point. So I
Right.
can't like dock it for that. you know?
No. It was fun. I enjoyed the time watching it, even though it was
Really?
fucking crazy. I just was like, why is everybody screaming? Why is everybody so sweaty? And why are they all like just spit screaming at everything? Like, I didn't know what was going on.
I don't know either, and I watched it twice.
But the
It's very
fact that
short.
he had like a giant scythe that he was like getting people with, that it looked just like the Grim Reapers.
Right.
And it was just hanging out on his porch of the Starlight Motel. Awesome.
I'm glad you didn't hate it.
No.
Because I could see someone hating this, and I'd be like, yes, that makes sense.
I was like engaged the whole time where
Right.
I was like, what the fuck's gonna happen? But I just didn't care about the plot. Like, I didn't care about this missing girl and the parents coming to find her or whatever. I was like,
I don't think the
who
movie really
cares?
cares that much either.
It doesn't.
But I was at least glad that I picked it because through the back half of the film, the little girl is crawling under the crawl space beneath
Kyle.
the motel and trying not to get killed by the redneck and trying not to get killed by the gators.
Now she's a multimillionaire living in Beverly Hills with a handsome real estate owner for a husband named Mauricio.
So she made it out.
She did. She's okay. She's not screaming anymore.
Whimpering and like
Just
crying.
wearing a bunch of caftans.
She turns out to be a pretty resilient little kid.
I I liked all like the close-ups of her with her like crooked kid teeth just screaming.
Yeah.
Like she reminded me of like a cat, like a mean cat hissing.
And he is swiping at her with that scythe too.
Oh,
He's trying to kill this child.
When she's underneath the house, he locks her in and then opens up the gate for the alligator to go into the house to get her.
Right. What'd you think of the crocodile puppet?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
considering
pretty all right.
how crappy the other stuff was, I thought it looked pretty neat.
It looked like a Disney World decoration.
Like you're in Pirates of the Caribbean, there's like an
Exactly.
alligator in the water, and it's
Totally
like,
that.
oh, yeah, 100%.
But yeah, for like a cheap ass drive-in film, impressively
It's good.
looking and impressively gross. It's not pleasant enough to watch for me to be like in love with it, but I'm glad I finally saw it.
Yeah, I'm glad I watched it.
What did you make me watch for this episode?
Well, as a palate cleanser from all the filth,
God.
I was thinking of a more wholesome film about Crocodilia, and I chose the Crocodile Hunter Collision Course from 2002, which was the pinnacle of Steve Irwin's The Crocodile Hunter career, where he was the shit and was taking over Discovery Channel and Animal Planet.
This is a real movie that went to real movie theaters based on a reality TV show.
That my mom brought me and my brother see.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we were huge Crocodile Hunter fans.
I had never heard of this film, and I had never seen an episode of the show before.
Well,
I was aware of it, but I'd never seen it.
It's pretty much the movie. So this film has a plot. It's not super important though. So basically there's some kind of like spacecraft that explodes, and there's a monitor that flies, and the US government's trying to track it because it has really important information that could change the world in it. So they're like, where is it? And they're like, oh, it's in Australia. And then the scene kind of flips to Australian outback, the little, whatever you want to call it.
It's like a black box from an airplane, kind of, but it's from a satellite instead.
Right. Let's call it the satellite tracker.
Yeah.
A big old crocodile eats it.
It just lands right by a big croc, and he eats it in one
whoop.
chomp.
Yeah, chomps it up.
And in the trailer for the film, they edited in a burp to make it funny. He goes, bleh.
So the government is like, God, what do the Australians know? Like, why do they have this? So they send some agents to go find it. Well, then the film just completely flips over, and it's Steve Irwin and...
Oh, crikey.
Yes. And Terry Irwin, and basically like 80% of this film is a Crocodile Hunter episode, where this is real stuff they did all the time, which I loved. That's what I think was so cool about this movie, even though it's kind of like a TV episode in a weird way, is there's nothing fake. Like all these animals he's fucking with, they're all real. There's no props. The crocodiles are real. All the stuff he's saying, he did this. Like he grew up wrestling crocodiles to save them. Like if there's a crocodile that comes out of the way and is like, around an area where poachers hunt or where people will shoot it, or if it's in danger of being hit by a car, any kind of creature or animal, like kind of the more like unsavory animals of Australia, like he'll rescue them and like bring them to like where they should be, and or bring them back to the Zoo of Australia to do some research on them to see how we can better help.
But for TV, it's not just animal conservation, which he's saying out loud. He's like explaining what you're saying. Like, this crocodile isn't encroaching on our territory. We're in his territory, so he's like pissed off.
Right.
We need to get him to this like other place where it's safer.
Right.
He's saying that out loud. But what he's also doing is pissing these animals off so that they're entertaining for the camera. And it's framed as education in that he's like, this is why you shouldn't fuck with alligators, or why you shouldn't like tempt this poisonous spider. But really, he's also pissing it off on purpose so
we could see it. So we can be educated, so we can know. I mean, when you look at National Geographic magazine, that's what they're doing. They're just doing it in photos, and he's just doing it in real life.
We're educated, but we're also entertained. It's edutainment.
It's a little of both. Yeah. I know, but I do like how, I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, is he exploiting the animals? But he really was like rescuing them and saving them. I love him.
And pissing them off.
And he was doing it for the best reason.
I do like him, though. He's
such like a wholesome person.
Yeah.
And like means well and like loves animals so much.
Okay, he is adorable.
Yes.
He's also like kind of a macho bro in ways that kept catching me off guard.
Like what?
Like him and his wife wrestle an alligator on a boat, and they're like very tired after, and they're like laying down, and he just slaps her ass. for the camera.
He's Australian.
Exactly.
He's just having a good time.
He's got this like macho bro kind of thing that like creeps up in a way you don't expect because he's so like energetic and like cartoonish in other ways. Or like he'll be chasing a lizard around and he's like, "Oh yeah, that lizard's going to find some handsome Sheilas, some cute Sheilas.
They're waiting for him."
Yeah, he's got kind of like a macho traditional outlook that I didn't really expect.
You didn't expect
because you get kind of a kid show vibe out of him,
right?
But it's not really that. He's a little more grown up than that,
right? Well, good.
Yeah,
I'm glad you realized that.
Yeah,
he's kind of like at the time where his show was hot. There was another the Jeff Corwin Experience, and Jeff Corwin was such like a snooze like compared to Steve Irwin. He was just kind of like, look at this alligator right over here. Isn't it so beautiful? And Steve Irwin was like, look at that beautiful Sheila over there. Go and jump on her and bring her back to where she belongs.
Oh, crocodile poo. I'm going to save some of this for later.
And puts it in his, and just like sniffing his hands.
He loves crocodiles so much that he stores their shit in his shirt for later.
Research it later. And he's like digging through it he's like finding lizard claws and stuff like that. But I loved like him and Terry. Like their relationship was so authentic, and his kids are great too. Like he has a son who does the same shit he does.
Oh, cool.
And is still passionate about animals like how he was. It's really cool. So the movie is essentially a lot of what he did in his TV show mixed with CIA stuff. Yeah. And can we talk about my favorite character in this movie?
The lady from Babe and Babe Pig in the City.
And she's also in Kath and Kim.
Oh, nice.
She's Kim's best friend,
which is an Australian show that you like.
Yeah, it's super funny.
I've never seen it.
Well, her name is Brosie, and she has her own theme song where it's like this, and she has like this scooter, and she lives on a cattle farm with like 1 million dogs that just follow her while she's on her scooter, and she tries to shoot gators because they are coming for her cattle.
I feel like she's the cautionary tale, right? Like she's what you're not supposed to do. She thinks she can best this gator this crocodile that's on her property, and Steve Irwin's there to tell you like, don't do this, call in a professional.
Right.
And she has this like very broad kids show feel where like she keeps fucking up, and it's supposed to be funny that she like falls down.
Like she falls down after she tries to use a raw chicken to catch an alligator.
Right.
Which people in my neighborhood growing up would do. They would put a stick by the ditch and put a raw drumstick and hang it so they can catch the alligator that's been screwing around in their yard. So I thought that was pretty funny because, I mean, that never fucking works. They're just going to eat the chicken and leave. They're not
quick.
stupid.
And yeah, and these crocodiles are very like quick in the water and like very strong. And
Oh yeah, you can see when he's trying to like wrestle them, where what he does is he'll jump on them while he's in the water, like at night with their little, light helmets. And Terry is really helpful with this too, where they have to put this rope around their mouth a certain way so they don't snap, and then they put them in the boat, drive them, and then drop them off further out in the water so they don't get shot by brosies.
After they slap each other's butts a few times.
After a couple of butt slaps. They just love having a good time.
Yeah.
Well, she was seen with like Russell Crowe.
What?
Terry Irwin. Yeah, like a couple of months ago.
Oh,
or
after
something.
his death. Okay.
Yeah, he's been dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Steve Irwin is dead.
Yes.
In case you didn't know.
He got stabbed in the heart with a stingray.
Which is really sad.
Right.
I mean, I didn't really know that much about him at the time, but it makes me sad now.
It was sad. Like, I don't know. I think because, like, I grew up with him. Like, me and my younger brother were so, like, infatuated, and I was never really that interested in wildlife until I saw his show.
Oh, nice.
And then I thought it was, like, really cool. Just to kind of show, like, things we don't see all the time. And not to, when you see a snake, don't, like, kill it or something, because it's part of our ecosystem. We need it. And it's not fucking with you, so leave it alone.
Right.
Stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, all the stunts that Steve does are real, and all the clips of like him messing with animals, I think there was so much that was being done. Like basically they were like, oh, we want to make a movie, so we're going to use some footage of like you just doing your regular thing. So a lot of that was just chosen randomly throughout like a time period.
Yeah.
They kind of picked like the greatest hits of all his experiences.
And it didn't really seem like he knew there was a plot to work with for most of the film. They kind of tied it in together at the end.
They kind of throw it in at the end where like he finds the alligator and he thinks he's rescuing it from poachers, but it's really the CIA agents that are trying to get the satellite thing.
But we're talking about the last 10 minutes of the movie.
The last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he like throws the little satellite for his dog Suey, who also joins him and Terry on their adventures.
Suey looked really concerned on that boat when they were pulling the croc.
Yeah. She like hides underneath and she's like, "Ooh."
That would be me. I'd be the dog cowering.
Such a Suey. So he's like throwing it like, "Oh, let's play fetch," because he's like, look at this garbage that people are leaving in the water that our animals are eating. And then he turns around and there's like 50 military helicopters hovering over him, and he's like, crikey. Like, it's so funny. But yeah, so I mean, that's generally it.
Yeah.
Collision Course. What did you think about it, Brandon?
Well, I think that this was great as an excuse to watch what felt like an episode or two of Crocodile Hunter.
Yeah.
With Steve Irwin.
Yes.
Because I had never seen the show before.
Good.
And I did enjoy it, and I get the appeal of it instantly. Like, he's an adorable, strange person who doesn't exist anymore. And even at the time, he would have felt like sort of old-fashioned, I think. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of cool to get an introduction to it.
Yeah.
When I would probably not likely sit down and watch a couple episodes of this reality show from like 15 years ago. Or longer now. So that was interesting, and it felt like they were getting interrupted by a movie I didn't care about. Like, the CIA stuff is so separate and so not as interesting as the Steve Irwin stuff that every time it happened, it felt like a commercial break for a TV show.
You didn't at least like fake President Bush?
Yeah, that guy... They have a Bush impersonator that I feel like was in a lot of stuff around that time. Yeah.
That was his job.
Right. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What format did you watch this in?
I saw it in theaters, and then I got it on DVD whenever I was like younger, and I still have it on DVD.
Do you happen to know if the DVD you have is full screen or widescreen?
Widescreen?
Okay. So you would notice this. This is fucking nuts, and I think it's my favorite thing about this movie. Well, I have two favorite things about this movie.
Ooh.
One is that the MGM logo, they replaced the lion with a crocodile.
Fun.
And it roars.
It's fun.
That's great. That's probably my favorite moment of the whole film. No insults or anything else. It's just that cool.
It's cool. Yeah.
Other thing that's nuts is that the documentary parts and the fiction parts are so separate that they didn't even film in the same fucking aspect ratio.
Yes.
All the film parts are in widescreen band. Like, they're like letterboxed.
Right.
And then all of the documentary parts are shot in full screen as if it was for TV. The way they get around that, if you like stream it off of like Amazon right now or Hulu, whatever thing it's on.
It's fixed.
It's fixed. So like the doco part, he calls it docos because he's Australian. That's an Australian thing apparently.
So cool.
But it sort of like floats in the middle of the frame. It's like letterbox on all sides. And it's just so funny how clear it is that these two productions are not in sync with each other.
Right.
That they didn't even get like a common aspect ratio together. Like, it's sort of like just like, you do whatever you're going to do, and we're going to make a movie around you. And
right.
Like, retrofit
That's
it.
exactly what happened.
Yeah.
If they would have known, like, if they could have been a pioneer for how, like, what, you know, we're always talking about, like, what makes a movie a movie. We watched the Road movie, where it's just compilations of, like, dash cam footage from Russia.
Yeah.
That was a movie. They could have just made a movie of him doing a bunch of shit on the big screen.
Honestly, that is the best case scenario for this, is it would have just been an extensive episode of him going on a very specific mission.
Or to find, like, one animal or something.
Right. Something very specific. Maybe something that needed 90 minutes instead of 50 or ever long his television episodes were.
Right.
So that you could tell a story, but not need to make it a real movie. By adding all this fictional stuff.
I don't think, like, the Irwins gave a shit that much. They seem like the kind of people that just be like, yeah, sure, cool.
They were just doing their job,
Whatever.
and then MGM made this movie around them.
Right.
I like that, though, because it feels like a relic from a different time.
Yeah, exactly. Where that wouldn't be able to fly in current times, I think. You know, like, I think it would be like, no, that's weird. Let's not do that.
Well, in the early 2000s, like, reality TV was more of a novelty.
Right.
And there were a few, I'm remembering, like, The Real Cancun was one. And a couple others. Like, there were a few novelty movies that were trying to translate this cheap-ass format. Mm-hmm. The reason people made it was that it was cheap, and you have to pay writers and things, to the big screen. Like, how do we make the movie version of this reality show? And this one does it in, like, the most obvious, clunky way possible.
And in the end, speaking of, like, little extra stuff this movie did, where they have all the bloopers, There's a Crocodile Rock song, and it's from
horrible.
the Baha Man.
Oh God.
Where it's like they basically like reword the lyrics to Elton John's "The Crocodile Rock" to go with this movie.
Which is now the second Baha Men song that I know exists. Just Who Let the Dogs Out
there's
and this
3.
Crocodile Rock song.
And then the In the Jungle. They did their own version of that. So
okay, well that's
3 Baha Men.
2 out of 3 songs are covers, apparently.
Okay. I thought that was really funny though, how they ended with the Baha Men,
was cute.
Crocodile Rock.
And I could see how kids would really be into that and be into
Totally.
The character from Babe. I wish I knew her name. What's her name?
Magda Zubanski is
Yeah.
her real name. She's fun.
Like, she feels like she's there for the kids.
Right.
And even, like, the CIA stuff feels really
Like,
broad.
her humor's, like, it's very, like, slapsticky, like, you know, slipping in the mud and yelling and falling and making an ass out of herself.
Yeah, getting dirty with the swamp mud.
With all the poop in the mud.
Yeah.
And the dogs.
And there's a few poop jokes and, like, fart jokes in the film. It's pretty,
So
like,
good.
kid-friendly in a way, even though there's, like, deadly, lethal danger, like, every couple of scenes, too.
I am so glad that we got to see and talk about this forgotten gem, because I think it's forgotten at this point.
Yeah, it's a relic.
It's a relic of the early 2000s. And I was so surprised, but Roger Ebert gave this 3 out of 4 stars.
What did he say about it?
Really liked it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can see that. Even when it's bad, it's, like, charmingly goofy.
That's the thing, too, where it's like, oh, it's shitty, but he's so charming and, like, good. They're both, like, so good-hearted that you can't hate this movie.
Well, he's never the problem. Anytime Steve or Terry are on the screen,
it's a joy.
It's a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
The other stuff they sort of cram in there to try to make a real movie, quote-unquote, out of it. It's like, you did not need to do this work. I didn't read that much about it, but I read that they filmed way more stuff than actually went into the film. And there were like hundreds of dangerous animals they filmed for this that didn't make it to the screen. And it's like, we sacrificed that for more satellite talk.
Because I think at that time, Hollywood was like, to have a movie, we have to have this crazy plot or something. We can't just like throw all this cool stuff out there, when in reality, that's all we want.
Right.
Like, we don't care about the damn CIA. They suck.
I think you're right. Like, the Road movie is like a better template for this. Like, if it had just been Steve Irwin without any context, that's more of like a 2019 approach to the same style.
Right. A more modern approach.
But I still can't even picture like a reality TV show having a movie version of it in the theaters right now.
So
that seems impossible.
There's a thing where, I don't know if you've seen it, but I am heavily into the Real Housewife franchises.
Okay.
And when they release like movie trailers, they incorporate the housewives in them.
Never seen
like
that.
For the, what's the Marvel girl character movie?
Captain Marvel?
For the Captain Marvel movie, they had a blockbuster that was like run down, and like Lisa Rinna from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was running in to return her movie, and like Kris Jenner is on her car phone while she's doing it.
Wait, so it's sponsored content made by the Desperate Housewives camera crew to advertise movies?
They make movie trailers, and during the trailers they throw in Real Housewives characters.
I don't know what you mean, like during the trailers, like on the TV show, like during the commercial breaks.
Yeah, but like not only on Bravo, like on other networks.
That's crazy. I've
It's
never seen
awesome.
that. Yeah.
So if there's ever like a Real Housewives the movie, like, kill me now. I'm ready for it.
I'd be interested. Like,
but I'll send you some of them just so you can like see what I'm talking about. It's insane.
Like, we talked about this with the Road movie too. Like, this kind of like trash media doesn't get remembered very well, and like making an official movie version of it, like, sort of legitimizes it a little bit. Like, I never watched Crocodile Hunter, just like I never watch those Russian dash cam videos. But it's edited together in a feature film, and all of a sudden it feels like it's a time capsule. I don't know. It's very funny to me that someone thought they could translate reality TV to the big screen. And the way they did it was just so obvious and like the least imaginative way to do it. And that kind of makes it more interesting.
The CIA.
And I really cannot tell you how much I marked out when that crocodile showed up instead of the line in the MGM logo. I don't know why, but that was the most charming fucking thing I've ever seen. And it just won me over instantly. It was like,
it's like one of the only movies that don't villainize the crocodiles and the alligators too.
Right.
Like, it's not making them the bad guys. You feel sympathy. You're like, help them get out. We suck.
even the big scary one, like,
Right. That Brosie was trying to shoot.
right. You want it to get back to its place and not be around
Right.
humans.
You want Steve to wrestle him, and then when he tries to, he goes on a wacky adventure on his boat through this like giant river.
Would it be safe to say that Crawl was your favorite movie we talked about today?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the other two were like more interesting in like their own cultural context.
Right.
Eaten Alive was interesting because it's a, crocodile flavored Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Like
movie.
dirty old 70s movie.
Yeah, and then this one's interesting as like a time when reality TV was new and no one knew to do with it.
I just like that. The time this film came out, I remember they had toys for the movie that were sold at like Kmart, which none of that exists anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so insane.
And the movie made like $30 million off of like a $12 million budget. It didn't do bad.
It was one of the first films that my family got on DVD. That's when DVDs, you had to like, we were in that DVD club where it's like buy 3 and then you get 1 free or something like that, like the CD clubs, because they weren't even at Walmart at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it was still VHS tapes everywhere. So I remember we were like, ooh, we got it on DVD for our DVD player. We're so cool.
I do remember like that time when like households had like 5 DVDs and you just watched the same movie over and over
And it was
again.
like so rare. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we had like, I think that and like the Lord of the Rings or something. And it was just, ooh, like they weren't as available as they are now.
I remember the only 2 movies we had that my sister and I could agree on were My Cousin Vinny and Clueless. So we would just watch
Cool.
those all the time.
Yes.
Very long time ago. It seems insane to think about now.
It's weird when you think about like how, like, I mean, there's like a $5 bin.
How much the internet has just changed everything.
And the internet, like, we don't even use DVDs anymore. Although I love them.
It's easy to be nostalgic thinking about this Steve Irwin film. It was definitely a time capsule of a
Those
different
Steve
time.
Irwin days.
Yeah. And, I've never missed him before, but I miss him now. It's
Cool.
sad to think he's
It
not
was sad
here.
when he died because he was just so, like, I don't know. He felt like America's dad in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, he was just such a wholesome person that was, like, a nice guy. Like, he never had, like, he never did anything weird. He was a good father, loyal to his wife and his family, and just wanted to help the animals.
I don't know. I see press clippings of him like almost like weightlifting his wife at like press events and like just he's got this kind of like old.
He's a funny man.
He's got this traditional macho energy that I do not identify with at all, and it seeps through in the film too in ways I didn't expect. Like when he slapped his wife's butt, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I really didn't expect it, and it really stuck with me.
I was hoping she'd fart.
I really don't think that's like a knock against him or anything, though. I was just like surprised that that's part of his personality and not something I really picked up on without watching the show. But anyway, I could talk about crocodile movies again too. Like,
yeah, there's so many more.
we could do more. Yeah,
Yeah, like we've just tapped this a
Right.
little bit. There's so much more out there.
If you want to read more about stuff we've already done, early on this show, we did an episode where we talked about alligator people, me and James.
Sweet.
Which is one of my favorites. And you and I and Boomer and maybe Allie, we did a movie of the month discussion of Alligator, the film
yeah.
where the gator invades Chicago. So
God, that movie's so fucking great.
if you look at swampflix.com and our movie of the month page, scroll down till you see the alligator, and there's 4 articles about that movie.
Well, we are like gator movie people, like with the logo of Swampflix.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're born to watch these gator films.
This is our natural habitat.
That's why I feel so comfortable.
Next episode on the show, James and I are going to be talking about Larry Cohen movies,
great.
his early career. And I will also be on the We Love to Watch podcast talking about Dagon later this month.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to that a whole month of like Lovecraftian films.
They've already done a few, and they've all been great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we'll see y'all in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Bye.